Welcome to another video. Today we're going to check out how to use PlayerPrefs so that we can persist options that we are toggling on and off between sessions or between scenes. So as you can see, we have our little menu here. Here's the options. We've got the post-processing. You'll notice it'll go on and it'll go off. So for example, I've turned it off. We're going to now exit the game and then we're going to go back in and we're going to have a look. Is it on or off? We're back in, options, it is off. So it has persisted between the sessions, and that's what we're going to check out. So there are two parts to this. The first is persisting it between the scenes, and the second is how do we handle the UI logic to make that work together. We're just going to have a look at what our hierarchy looks like. In our game systems, we have the post-process volume, and this is it, the post-process volume persist. So this guy will be persisting between games. And then moving on to our UI, let's have a look at what the UI looks like. For our options, we're going to look at the display options post-processing, and that is this post-processing we have over here. This is just a very simple empty object where on the root object for the options UI, we have our post-fx toggle UI. So this is the post-process volume, and this is our singleton that we'll be using so that we can reach out for its instance and actually then get the data from it whenever we need it, wherever. So very simply, we're going to start at the top. We have a key. Now this key is what PlayerPrefs is required to use. Because whenever we get a value, it needs a key to know which value to get. We're simply caching the string for the postfx key. And then we have got two methods, saving and loading. Saving is a public method because wherever we are handling the toggling of information on and off, we want it to then reach for this and then use its save method. Just trying to keep it very encapsulated, and this thing does the job of saving and loading. So we'll reach out for it. Then we've got a private method called load, and it will handle loading of the actual player preference data. So saving, how do we actually use PlayerPrefs? Call PlayerPrefs, set the type. There are multiple types, float, int, string. Don't worry about that. And in this case, we're using an int. We're going to pass in the key as the first value, and then we are going to pass in whatever value that is. This can be whatever you want, 1 or 0 in this case, because I'm using integers to handle Boolean values. Then we are simply going to save all the modified preferences. Next, we are going to be checking out load. Now, load has got essentially, don't worry about these debug, but the first thing you always want to do is when using PlayerPrefs, check that the key exists, place your key as the parameter in hasKey, and it will do a check. It'll return true or false. You can see it returns a Boolean value. And assuming that our key is valid and it exists, we are then going to actually get the value. So because we know it is an integer, we're going to get int, give it our key, and this is just a default value, but this will return whatever value we need, and we're just going to perform some operation so that we can add it into our cached is enable. This is enable is then going to be used for setting a game object true or false as an enable state. So that is actually how we use PlayerPrefs to get and set values. You need a key and you need a value. And it's very good to always check that, does the key exist before you load it? Otherwise, you're going to get errors and you're going to be wondering, hey, is my system working? You can catch it very quickly this way. So that is the post-process volume persistence. Next up, we're going to quickly check out how do we actually handle the toggle for our system. We turn it on and off. We're just going to get a reference to that toggle. It's a serialized reference. Put it in the inspector. A toggle's value is always determined by is on. And very simply on enable, we're going to get whatever the post-process volume persistence information we have. We're then going to also add a listener to say that, hey, whenever the toggle's value has changed, because it's a Boolean operation of true or false whenever you toggle it on and off, we then want to run this method. And in this case, we're calling it onPostFX toggle changed. It takes in a parameter, which is the new value that it has changed to. And we are simply going to be reaching for our persistent object so that we can set it active on off, and then we're going to run its save command. That's all there is to it. Now, if you want to have a look at your actual persistent data, like where it actually is saved, where does PlayerPrefs actually go to? Well, I can't really speak for any other platform except for Windows, because that is what I'm operating on. So I can show you over there where we are on Windows. So if you type registry editor in your start menu, it should come up with this. Yes, we accept. And you're going to be looking under HKey current user, software, default company if you have not changed your company name to something else, and whichever project. In this case, TM3D2 is the one that we're working on right now. And you can see these are all my PlayerPrefs. And whenever you double click an option, you can see what the value is. Nice and simple. That's all there is to it. I hope that this is something that you find useful. If you do wonder about any of the features we had gone over today, how do you build certain things? How do you work with some of the UI elements? What is a good architecture to work with? Or any questions in general, feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this content, and I will see you next time for another video. Thanks for watching.